Is this the spooky Dario Argento fanboy redemption arc? Not really, I would say, but I did watch Tenebre this morning. Yes, I started my morning by watching Tenebre because it's been a while since I haven't seen it. It was due for a rewatch. Dario Argento fanboys kept telling me how great this was, and like everyone I know really loves this movie. So I'm like, it's either me, that's something wrong with me, or that I just don't agree with people, which wouldn't be. I mean, your opinion is an opinion, right? It's valid. But I always liked this movie. I just didn't love it the way that a lot of people do. Now, after a rewatch, do I love it? Yeah. Yeah. I totally changed my mind. I still have issues with this, but then again, the issues I have with this one are issues that I have with a lot of giallo, and a lot of the gialli, because that's the plural apparently, a lot of them do have the same issues as this film. It's just, it would be hypocritical for me to not criticize those, while this one, I criticize, which they have the same issues, so why would I say that it's okay in, let's say, a Martino movie or a Fulci giallo, but not okay in this one? I mean, I'm gonna be fair. I'm gonna be fair and square in this review, but I am gonna start with the negatives I have with this film. My biggest issue with this, my biggest point of contention as to why I didn't love it as much as other people, is that the year this was released. This is a 1982 or 81 film. I'm uncertain. Why don't they say it? I'm pretty sure it is. It is from 1981. So it's in the 80s, early 80s, but still in the 80s, which made it a giallo that was released about 20 years or so around that time. It's like 20 years into the genre or subgenre of giallo, which you would expect it to be, a bit different, but this is a very linear, very typical, very cliche, I'd even say, giallo. It's A to B, and that's it. There is nothing new, there's no twists, there's no turns, it's as you expect. The twist comes to the end, which is probably my second biggest issue with the film. So my main issue is that for the year this was released, as deep as it was into the genre of giallo, this offers nothing new. And now that's where, it is a criticism from me, but it's not the end of the world, because I like typical kind of a linear gialli too. And for that matter, this is probably the most well executed. This is probably the most perfectly executed giallo that I've seen, due to probably the fact that it was in the 80s and Dario Argento had made a few good ones already, so he was kind of, fairly familiar with the genre. But it's a simple giallo, and that's the end of it. Again, perfectly executed, but very simple. My second biggest issue is the ending, and that's my issue with a lot of Dario Argento films, is the ending feels unsatisfying. There is a twist at the end, and we need an exposition dump to make that twist work, which exposition dumps I already am not a big fan, but that was, again, typical for giallo, and even my favorite gialli do have like an exposition dump at the end, which I understand. It's just, this felt very forced because the real killer was found out early in the film, and I guess Dario Argento wanted a twist to differentiate this one from other gialli, and the twist, just the explanation, it just didn't work perfectly for me. But then again, I love some gialli that the conclusion makes even less sense, so I can't fault it for that much. But these are my two main issues with the film, and those were my points of contention as to why this was not like the perfect movie. Now, rewatching it, I do agree it's a fairly linear giallo. That's okay. I like those types of films, so already that's not the biggest deal. And I do, even though the explanation for the twist might not be perfect, I do appreciate the twist because it gave the movie about 20 minutes more, and it also gave us some of the more memorable kills. I feel like this film is loved for a lot of reasons, but the two main ones are that the kills in this are probably the most memorable, most, I wouldn't say original, but they kind of are. They're probably the most memorable kills in any giallo, especially of that era where the genre was kind of dying. This is kind of a swan song to the giallo genre, and it's a great way to go out because the kills are very... Of course, everybody knows the one that's like on like the alternative cover, I think. Okay, maybe not this one, but you know, the one through the shirt. I think that's on like Synapse, that's like on the American releases. The one through the shirt at the beginning, of course the girl getting axed axed off and the blood goes everywhere. So the kills are amongst the best of the genre. The music is also so amazing. I've always loved the music, and this is probably the Dario Argento soundtrack that I listen to the most, because I do listen to some soundtracks, and this and Suspiria, bangers. Especially this one, banger. So a banger soundtrack, super memorable kills, great amazing kills. It's just, you know, that's, I think, the reason why people love this one so goddamn much. The story is fairly simple, but it's very cool. I always love stories about horror authors, horror filmmakers. We follow Peter Neal on his trip to Rome. So again, very stereotypical giallo, where there is a foreigner in a European country, or Rome, or Germany, or London, whatever. So Peter Neal is in Rome for a press tour for his newest book that I think just got re-released in paperback in Italy, and there we see a couple of murders that seem to reflect the murders in his novel. Therefore the police gets, you know, worried about what is about this possible serial killer inspired by Peter Neal's book. So they go to see Peter Neal, and they basically, the entire film is, as a giallo is police trying to do their stuff, and then our main character trying to investigate on his own end, and in between you see the character of Peter Neal, his agent, and everything. So we get, you know, the setup for all of the possible murderers until eventually we're led on to who is the true murderer. Typical giallo fashion. Peter Neal does a great the actor that plays Peter Neal does an amazing job. He really plays that stoic author, that, you know, stoic man, very intelligent, very educated, and he's, you know, not really suspect because he kind of helps the police, and he tries to, you know, do his investigation and almost treat the thing as one of his novels. Then you have, of course, John Saxon, who's always great in everything, who plays his agent, who's having an affair with Peter Neal's ex-wife, who's kind of mentally ill, and she has a lot of issues, and she even follows him to Rome. So it's quite a complex storyline with a lot of side characters, which is also something I feel like is great about this film, because a lot of these typical kind of giallo would be very, you know, like this is the character, like this is suspect number 1, suspect number 2, suspect number 3, and this doesn't do that. You actually get a bit of complexity from the characters. What Dario Argento is known for, what Italy films are known for, is cinematography. Kind of disappointing from this one, especially coming from the man who made probably one of the most beautiful film, that being Suspiria, which is also one of my favorite films. I was kind of disappointed to see a very flat, unoriginal, very 80s kind of cinematography, but it doesn't take it away, but it also doesn't give it much. Like, it's not gritty, it's not super artistic, it's just flat standard. So I think that's also something that disappointed me on my first viewing. Now on a rewatch, I don't really mind. It's just surprising coming from Dario Argento, who was known for his style. This is probably is more substance over style, which is good for. I think this one is popular. This one is gonna be way more for your typical horror fans, your kind of mainstream horror fans, because this one is from the 80s. It's easy to get in. The plot is not super convoluted like in other gialli. And the characters are not hateable, they're quite likable. It's well written, the mystery is very well done, the plot twist is surprising, and it's honestly a fairly good film, and it's fairly good. It's great. It's a great film, and it's perfect for maybe introducing people to Italian horror. With you introduce them with this perfectly executed, probably one of the best straight linear giallo ever made, and then they can get into more maybe obscure or less linear, more weird Italian films. So yeah, I think that's why a lot of people love this one. So am I in love with this one? I don't think I am yet. I'm maybe on the third rewatch. However, I will say that objectively this is probably one of the greatest giallo ever made, and it's not surprising coming from Dario Argento, who's one of the greatest director, especially in horror, that we ever had. I feel like I'm not convincing, but a lot of people blow this film, and I just wanted to make this review. There is issues with this film. It's not perfect, but I can see why people love it, and I did really like it on a second watch, and I'll probably like it even more on a third watch. All in all, I'll keep this short, even though it's been long, and I feel like I've been all over the place. My rating. What do you want me to say? This is like a 9 out of 10. This is almost perfect. This is probably as close to perfection in an objective sense that a giallo can be. I just have movies I prefer over this one. There are giallos, whatever, that I like more, even though I might not give them a higher rating. I don't feel like this one is going to be the one, like when I feel like watching a giallo, I don't think this is going to be the one that I always pop in, but this is one that I'll definitely revisit. It might even become, a classic that I watch every year or so. I have a lot of movies like that. Suspiria is one of those, but yeah. Highly recommended. If you haven't seen this one, come on. It's an Argento film. Everybody loves it. It's a great film. It's a masterpiece. It's one of the greatest giallo ever made. Now, Dario Argento fanboys, are you happy? I've admitted it. Now leave me the fuck alone. Love you all.